warm welcome to Humanity Rising, this live broadcast that brings speakers from all over the world to share their wisdom and knowledge, covering a variety of spectra of topics. Now, my name is Sabina von Gafka, and it's a pleasure for me to be here today again and the rest of this week to host and facilitate these conversations. And we truly have an interesting, and I would say, eye-opening conversation ahead of us today that's going to revolve around the theme of conscious community and transformative learning. Because I'll be hosting a conversation with Steve Farrell, who is here to share his wealth of knowledge around this topic and also tell us more about his NGO, Humanity's Team, that is one of the leading NGOs seeking to really promote a more conscious, compassionate world and helping people, companies, and individuals throughout the world awaken to their deeper self and also realize the interconnectedness of everything in this universe. Just a brief about Steve, we'll be diving more into that, but he comes from more the enterprise and business world, where in the 90s he was in Silicon Valley, very successful founder and creator of tech companies there, and how he transitioned into this more conscious way of modeling business is what we're actually going to learn today, which is so relevant in this day and age. So there's truly going to be a lot of nuggets of wisdom that we all can take back with us to our companies, or at least to our own lives. And with that, we're also going to welcome an additional colleague to Steve during the conversation, who will also be talking more about the different curriculums and education of Humanity's Team. And interestingly enough, Humanity's Team is now also B2B partner to Humanity Rising. So that will hopefully help us evolve this even more. So before I invite Steve to join this conversation, let's do what we always do, and that is to prepare our body, mind, and soul to really have that heart coherence. So we're here in the presence, we're conscious about the conversations that we're going to have for 1.5 hours going forward. So let's just close our eyes, open our hearts, and focus on our breath. So thank you so much for participating in that. Hopefully we all feel very conscious and present at the moment. And with that, it's a great pleasure for me to say a warm welcome to Steve Farrell. Thank you so much for joining us today. You're in Colorado. How is everything?
I am great. Sabina, thank you so much for inviting me. It's wonderful to be here. Colorado is gorgeous. We've got our summer weather back at sunshine, and we get over 300 days of sunshine a year here, actually, here in Boulder, Colorado. So hooray. Nice time of year to be here.
Nice time of year, definitely. And what a perfect opportunity to have a conversation. I mean, I know there's so much interesting aspects of what you've done and what you're doing that we're going to be able to shed light on during this conversation. But just for the viewers, I'd like to just sort of start a bit because, like I mentioned, you're co-founder of Humanity's team, and that is sort of what you're concentrating on now. And you're a co-founder together with Neil Donald Walsh, who is, as many of you know, best-selling author of Conversations with God. But all of this sort of started, if we go back to the 90s, where you were in Silicon Valley, you founded two, I mean, immensely successful tech companies. And sort of had that billionaire companies, the success, the power, the everything. And tell us a bit about that and what actually then transitioned into that sort of thought trail of conscious business.
Yes, so my life has been quite an adventure, as you mentioned. So I grew up with a single divorced mom and 6 siblings, and so we were paying for clothes and even buying our own braces and things, and certainly putting ourselves through college. And then after I finished college there in the Washington, D.C. area, I did move, as you mentioned, out to Silicon Valley. And there I find myself 11 years after moving in the center of wealth creation in Silicon Valley, because as you mentioned, I was kind of in the right place at the right time there. As the internet was born, I was starting these companies focusing on digital communications, and we were working with the largest companies, first on the West Coast, then later also on the East Coast, to architect and design and implement their digital communication systems, high performance, secure digital environments. And so we went from 2 guys, used furniture in the least expensive executive suite that we could find, to a $75 million company, the first organization. And then we birthed a second one inside of that we took to 75 million in 2 years. So I really was kind of in the right place at the right time. That all gave me entrance then into this business association, YPO, where people like Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, was in my chapter. There are about 60 of us, and equally amazing, all of them. He, of course, is an amazing guy, but amazing, all of them, these people that I was rubbing shoulders with. Now, then in the midst of all of that, I had my personal awakening. I'm guessing everybody here has their own story as to what that was and when that happened. Mine happened there in the mid 1990s, in the midst of all of this hyper growth. And that really changed everything. I lost my passion for business. And this is why then, as you mentioned, I left. I sold everything. I left YPO. I actually moved from Silicon Valley to Boulder, Colorado with my family, where I am now. And we launched Humanity's team, Neil Donald Walsh. Of course, that's Conversations with God and I, in 2003. So almost exactly 20 years ago, we launched Humanity's team. And here we are now, we're a nonprofit 501c3. So our whole North Star is this, healthy planet, create a sustainable and flourishing world. That's our whole North Star. We have no shareholders. It's all about creating that. And let's see, Sabina, I think you're on mute, Sabina. There we go.
And what sort of happened, because I mean, having that successful path, also being so intertwined, I mean, in the whole business spectrum and also in that sort of sphere of YPO and everything, what sort of transitioned for you to, I don't know if it was an epiphany or just that change where you felt, I actually want to divert my life to building the awareness around conscious business. And then we're going to dive into, of course, what that implies. But what sort of made that transition?
So a couple things. First, there was that moment. And again, I'm guessing all of the viewers here and you, Sabina, had that moment where there was something in your personal awakening that was just gigantic, that was just life-changing, new self-identification. I go so far as to say that. And so I remember that moment where I sat there in my townhouse in Marin County, and I decided, there's one of 2 truths that is primarily my truth. One, born to dad, Joe, mom, Linda, got this life to live, Steve, in this body that at some point goes to bones and dust and 6 feet under. Or I'm primarily offspring of source. When Humanity's team, we even use the word the divine, or we could say universe or cosmos. my science friends like to use that term. And then we have, then that means the whole Rumi quote is true, not just a drop in the ocean, but the whole ocean in a drop, the everlasting life, unlimited potential. And our parents still have a significant role in that second scenario. They're the airport terminal that delivered us to the planet, right? So, but I did come to the conclusion that the second thing was my primary truth. And then the ground shifted under me, everything shifted. It was just a whole new foundation, a whole new reality as I looked out on the world, as I looked at myself, at you, at animal life, at plant life. The life basically is sacred. So that happened. As well, I would say, as I was on the private jet thing and even a private ski area thing and stuff, there was a cognitive dissonance for me of, on the one hand, I told you how I grew up, even paying for my braces and things. And now I'm in this kind of extraordinary environment, which was kind of wow. And then on the other hand, this knowing who I really am and looking at the world, which in the 90s, candidly, was very, we had these same things, climate change, global warming, et cetera. And so there was a cognitive dissonance of, these two things with the noise, the chat, the sort of tap on the shoulder, the consciousness saying, is this really the role that you were to play here, Steve? Is this really why you were born into this world? And that voice became louder and louder, and to the point where I did, as I mentioned, I completely lost my passion for business. I didn't go on the venture boards that I was invited to, which are 6 and 7 figure kinds of compensations, because I knew that I was going to devote my life to this conscious living thing. And I didn't know when or how, but I knew I was going to. And I actually was 2 years, between the time I sold everything and left everything and when the founding of Humanity's team with Neil Donald Walsh. So that was an interesting 2 years where I really didn't have anything to do that was important to me. I was just waiting for the thing to materialize that I knew was gonna come to me.
And sort of that, because when you explain it, it sounds like, such a subtle and easy transition, but was there sort of something that catapulted, because just getting that awareness is one thing, but then cultivating that awareness and sort of that spiritual aspect and even, how would you define consciousness?
Yeah, so let me get to both of these, which this is part of the reason I wrote this book. A New Universal Dream just came out a month ago, which is the true story of my journey that's over 50 years from that teenager, 12 years old, to today. Part of the reason I wanted to write it is just there were so many, I was the middle kid in this little family. And then I grow into these experiences where I, 175 people, first company, 775 in the second company, Humanity's team. There's a lot of learning, a lot of growth, a lot of just taking in wisdom. Also, as you mentioned, many moments of challenge where my family and coworkers, friends who love me said, Steve, don't leave IBM and don't go into that little executive suite. You've got too much on the ball to roll those dice, and then if you think that was bad, then when I said I'm cashing out, I'm leaving my lottery ticket, I'm burning it, I'm heading out, I don't know that I'll ever have compensation again in my life. Again, people who love me thought I completely lost my mind, that I was jumping off a cliff and what was going to happen to me. So another reason I wanted to write the book. So I think for all of us, this was true for me here, is there's this still small voice that guides us, which we call the soul, our heart, where it's kind of more our center. And of course, when we started this program, we went into a practice where we're going there. We're going to that center. We're becoming conscious. We're communing, with the one and life around us. So this was a really important process for me, and tuning out the world noise where I knew people loved me. They were only trying to support me, but I knew they were actually trying to whistle me in the wrong direction. So, and I think on this conscious journey, this is part of what we have there in the overall, as we know, all of us here would say, oh, life is delicious. It's wonderful. In a moment, I'm going to put some words to that. But there are these moments where our legs need to be strong, where it becomes arduous on the path, where the whole world is saying, don't do that, don't go there, don't make that mistake. And we've got to listen to that still small voice to kind of get through those periods. So there were great challenges here, but I fortunately did listen to that voice as I do today. It's really, I believe, why I'm here, to hear that voice, follow that voice, embody it, and express it to the best of my ability. Now, as to what conscious living is, so conscious living, as we're defining it in Humanities team, is being conscious of how life really works. I'll call it even ultimate reality, where we've taken the time to understand latest science and research, which, as we know, I look at Nassim Haramein with Resonance Science Foundation, a physicist, or look at the Nobel Prize for Physics, October last year, 3 physicists who win the prize for entanglement. And entanglement, if we go to the dictionary, I mean, we've got 2 things out in the universe. There's no physical connection whatsoever, and they're deeply affecting each other. So we're outside of the science we grew up in. Right? Now we're into more this whole oneness or interdependence, deeply connected universe. And of course, there's all Bruce Lipton and Greg Braden, and there's so many scientists, Dean Radin at IONS. There's so many scientists around that are affirming now what the mystics said, what Plato and Hippocrates said back 2,500 years ago, that there's a single consciousness, and we're all faces of that single consciousness. So conscious living is where we're living into that, where we understand, we're actually offspring and an energetic vibrational being, a spiritual being that is a part of source, and we're living into that, just like that moment at the beginning of this program. But in conscious living, we're actually maintaining that connection. So we're maintaining that connection throughout our day, into the night, sleeping in that connection. That's the real juiciness of life, as opposed to this, what most of us experienced growing up, the roller coaster, mental, emotional, logic center of the mind, bad day, good day, judging this experience, transactional stuff. It's all gone. We washed that out in conscious living. No transactional. We're staying in this place of flow, in this place of connection, of communing. And so we still have challenges, but now we're coming at these challenges in a completely different way.
And it sort of feels that is more innately where we should be. But I guess with our educational system and the way we come into this world, it's more on a base of scarcity and debt than actually the potential that we have. So, I mean, that's why it's so interesting that now this can flourish, where we nearly become more human again with conscious living. And I also know when you talk about conscious living and conscious business, it's also both the inner transformation and the outer transformation, because a lot of companies who are maybe aware or maybe doing a lot of the outer transformation, but not really the inner. So could you just sort of clarify a bit more what that means and how you can do that in practicality as a business, for example?
Yeah, so exactly. And so important, this distinction. And so we could go to the integral theory here as we talk about this. Ken Wilber's all quadrants, all levels, which is this real simple little quadrant. You've got on the right side interior, or we've got, or I'm sorry, small, the external world on the right side and the internal world on the left side, and it's individual and collective, as the top individual and bottom is collective. So what Ken Wilber and integral theorists say is that we're living in a flatland, and a flatland is where just the exterior world, our eyes, are really guiding all of how we're living our life. That's that mental, emotional roller coaster up and down. In the interior world, which is where we're just like the beginning of this program, where we go within, where we're communing with source, where we're feeling that oneness, and where, just as the mystics shared and science is even affirming, that omnipresence, omniscience, omnipotence, all wisdom from the universe is actually there. Even power of the universe, where we align ourselves with the collective, what is called supra-consciousness, where we've kind of gotten our little self out of the way and we're saying, wow, there's some real challenges in the world. That's going to be my focus. I'm going to live supra, consciously. And then that power, yes, is at our fingertips too, where there's a universe, the wind of the universe at our back, providing resources, the right community, the right people coming in. We experience this in Humanity's team, as I know you do in Humanity Rising, where, because you all are doing the same thing, where you're getting to really important and urgent things. So yes, this is kind of how that works and how we're living into that.
So sort of taking it then to Humanity's team and the NGO, just out of interest, so how did you meet Neil Donald Walsch? How does sort of that meeting come about?
So that was in the 1990s when I was in the midst of all of that growth and I was an entrepreneur. He had a newsletter, a free newsletter, and he reached out and said, is there anybody out there that is got a company that's a substantial company that's actually doing things with this Conversations with God wisdom? And honestly, I thought, of course, the whole world is going to respond to this, because remember, Conversations with God was on everybody's book stand, and Larry King Live and all the media, television networks, they were all interviewing Neil, where did this wisdom come from? And so, of course, there are going to be organizations everywhere that are bringing this into their organization. I didn't think anything of it at all when I said I am. Yeah, we're doing quite a lot with it. It turned out I was wrong. I was one of the few back then. And so Neil said, would I fly up with Stephanie to Ashland, Oregon, and meet with them and have dinner and kind of see his organization? And I did. And then a friendship developed after that.
Wow. And the evolution of Humanity's team. So it's a streaming platform, it's educational, and sort of what is the incentive and the tools that you actually bring forth? I presume it's both B2B, but also to individuals.
Yeah. So not to engage in hyperbole here, but truly in our view, and I think this is Humanity Rising too, which is why we're so aligned. This is a very important and urgent time right now. This extreme weather, is one big manifestation of that. You've got even terms like existential crisis surfacing more and more. You've got groups that are getting media attention that are all about extinguishing the human race because we're bad for the planet. It's a serious time. So we created a year ago an initiative with Neil, our co-founder, and the Conversations with God Foundation and faculty, leaders that create masterclasses with us, called Changing Humanity's Future. And you can go to changinghumanitiesfuture.org and read about this initiative. And this initiative is saying, this is a really important time that we take, all of us here who are conscious, who have been on this journey for some time, there's so many of us, that we now go beyond just living it individually and in our households and maybe sprinkling it lightly with our friends in business, to really stretching into it and seeing that this is the thing. It's the Albert Einstein quotes that go back over 100 years. So in 1921, so that's over 100 years ago, Einstein said the greatest illusion in the world is the illusion of separation, and then he had his other famous quote everybody's heard probably many times, that this optical delusion, is a prison for us, and our job must be to free ourselves from this prison to embrace the whole of humanity and the world. And then his other quote, that no problem can be solved at the same level of consciousness that created it. So we've got to elevate consciousness, go up a level, So this is what Changing Humanity's Future is. We're doing our best to get media attention now. We want to draw in elites, media, the public from all over the world to have a conversation and to say, and I know Humanity Rising is all about this, which is why we're such great partners, is to have a conversation and to say, there's a remedy right here, right now to all of this. Because as we know, when we're, again, just like our beginning experience, when we're in this place of communing and connection, we can't go do things that are going to not steward our planet, foul our planet, or start wars, or start GMO type companies or anything like this. Because what becomes elevated when we're living consciously is life itself. That's the prerogative, serving life first. That's, first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. Those are the highest priorities that we have. It's just what it means to be conscious. So And many of us already are conscious. We can have conversations like this now without being accused of woo-woo. And when we started 20 years ago, oh my gosh, again, that was tough. And I share in my book, what few friends I still had, they were gone when I said, this is what I'm devoting my life to now, which thank God, it was true. And it was an inconvenient truth, but it was true then and it's true today. So now humanities team programs, we've got this initiative, Changing Humanity's Future. In the middle of it, our biggest strategy as a 501c3 nonprofit then is we've created the streaming platform, which is the most sophisticated actually in the whole transformational education industry. If you go to humanitystream.net, you'll see it. Go into the library and visually just scan the hundreds of transformational education programs there. It's a subscription service and we're a nonprofit. So let's get the price down. Our whole team is, when can we get it down again? When can we get it down again? And then give it away. We've got like the Tom Shoes, the 1-for-1, each paid subscription. Good. We can give away a free subscription. So the whole idea here is, with all of these hundreds of master classes in science and spirituality and embodied practices, Ken Wilber, in philosophy and conscious business, which we're going to talk about with Dr. Larry Clay here shortly, all of these things here on the platform, you get this platform and community into people's homes all over the planet where it's translated, and you only have to go through a couple of classes and you get it, so for those of us watching that are conscious, it deepens our conscious journey. For others, and there are many that haven't started it, it just sort of becomes that dam breaker of, wow, I didn't realize that science was here. I didn't realize that more than a physical body. So that's the thing that allows us to say, make conscious living pervasive worldwide by 2040. That's in 17 years, that's a big lift. And you have to say, how in the world do you plan to do that? Well, our major strategy, education, right, is always the most powerful transformational tool, education. So develop the best streaming platform, put the best education on there, hundreds of these master classes, and even conscious business, which we'll go into deeper soon, and get that out in houses all over the planet. And bam, we're going to go, that's going to take us a long way in terms of making this conscious living pervasive worldwide in just 17 years.
Wow, well, that's applaudable. And it can, like you say, who knows, with the exponential times that we live in, maybe it can go even quicker. Maybe there needs to be, we have the SDGs by the UN. Maybe we need to have the SBDGs, the Conscious Business Development Goals, where, there's a framework for it, which is, I know you also developed, because was it in 2014, just to give this also a context, you formed a Conscious Business Alliance.
Right.
Also involves the Conscious Business Declaration and it was with 3 other partners. The Club of Budapest, the Goy Peace Foundation, and the Fowler Center for Business. So that is really, a strong foundation on the levels of, the equivalent of the UN and the business segment. So I think that's also gives it such validation as well.
Yes, exactly. So that was about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
We created the Conscious Business Declaration. You go to consciousbusinessdeclaration.org and read about it, sign it if you agree with it, get behind it. And the reason we put so much energy and investment into that, and still do, is in today's world, the most powerful institution on the whole planet is business. It was the church. We go back, 600 years. It's business right now. So if we think about, let me use the metaphor of a train, who's pulling the train here on the planet? It's business. So we need to then make business conscious. And this goes back to, you were saying, interior and exterior dimensions to this. So the current models that are out there in conscious business are real nice. They're stepping stones in the right direction. They focus on the exterior world, people, planet, and profit. They don't bring in presence, they don't bring in the interior. And that's the thing that's transformative. So, and that's where the juiciness is. That's where the power is. It's the power plant in conscious business, where you create a culture that is based on the interior, where it's about, so it's to not be too abstract. It's about we, right? And not me. I know I'm often the face of humanities team. We've got Dr. Larry Clay with us here too, but it's about we inside humanities team. appreciating and seeing the contribution of everybody, and appreciation for and support for and talking from the heart and keeping the dream in front of all of us of this world where kids and future generations are growing up saying, hooray, we love the earth and we're back. It's a sustainable and flourishing environment, and an inspiring environment is part of a conscious business where it's really, if there's one word, it's love. Really, love is the one word that is because of course that's what we're an emanation of source. And what is source? Love, actually pure love. So, which is kind of funny where you bring in that word in a business context, but I didn't call those businesses that I had in Silicon Valley conscious business because the term wasn't out yet, but really love was what we put in the middle of it. That's how we got that extraordinary growth. Especially the first business. I kind of lost control of the second one because of the venture capital I brought in, but that's a story for another day.
But speaking a bit of sort of illuminating the business world and the business leaders of today. I mean, you have your experience from Silicon Valley, and I mean the way business are driven today are still maybe in core with that, planet, profit, and so forth. But do you find, probably because you also meet a lot of business today, and I also know you have a lot who have gone into your conscious business declaration, do you find that leaders and businesses are understanding this, which is one thing, but then also being able to motivate to implement this? Because it is changing the narrative and the mindset from profit, stakeholder, expansive growth, to a new narrative, but still being in a thriving and successful business environment. Do you find that is a transition that is getting easier and easier? And if not, what is sort of the Achilles heel still?
Yeah, honestly, we have a long, long, long way to go here. So we've got Patagonia, who all we know, wow, what a gift to the planet, and people like Paul Pullman and other business leaders that I could bring in. But unfortunately, we can count them, and they're actually in the small and medium-sized business. There's a lot more of them. But in terms of really creating a tipping point where business is seriously looking at this, and we're, especially when we talk about the interior, not just people, planet, profit, and ESG, but interior, where we become transformed, where we see this whole really everlasting life thing, and that we're here to support life. So this is the urgent and important conversation we're wanting to have. It's part of this Changing Humanity's Future conversation of inviting business people in, because honestly, this is just me talking, but in today's world here right now, July 2023, I have no idea why anybody would be working in a business that wasn't committed to nurturing and supporting this planet right now with everything that's going on. To just be supporting a business that's getting top and bottom line growth and is not really bringing in nurturing and support for the planet. Why would we do that? And today, this is just me. Why, with the nature of the challenge, would we do that? So, and I think I'll answer my own question, because there's the sense that we have to punch the clock and make our income and make our whole world stand up. But here's the thing: as you're getting a sense here from us just talking here, Sabina, I didn't find the true wealth, the big treasure chest in Silicon Valley. I was there with the crowd for sure that had the, even into the billions of wealth, but the treasure was not there. The treasure is here, and this is the thing that I think we've got to just keep inviting people to, is as we deepen our conscious journey and really put both feet in there and live it fully. This is where the deliciousness of life comes in, and even what I call a boomerang effect. In sacred text, it says, "Give unto the kingdom, and then all things are given unto you." It is true, actually. It does work that way. That's that boomerang effect thing, or supra consciousness thing, where once we really give to it in a pure way and realize, oh my gosh, this is maybe even why I'm here, I'm going to give all of what I've got to it. Then life starts throwing back, the house, the partner, the right audiences, the right resources, even I believe media attention is probably around the corner that will come, because the universe is saying there's a faucet here supporting life. And the universe wants to, that's what super consciousness is. The universe wants to support life at this point. So it is urgent and important now. And I look forward to conversations with business leaders all over the world in the next year, 5 years, 10 years, where we really can sit down at a table and talk.
And allow for that space. Because I think also, with media and with the imagery of what success is, through television, through movies, through advertisement, it's been sold and oversold again and again. And yet, we know the parallel storyline. I mean, I'm generalizing now, but, generalizing, some of the most wealthiest are also feel the most alone, and like you say, don't find that real treasure, because that's not innately the purpose of why we're here, but it's what we've been fed to why we are here. But it is that interconnectedness, and sometimes I'm also wondering, have we, hopefully the veil is being drawn away, but can humanity start to digest the sense of hope and thriving and flourishing? Because a lot of the time, we've been subconsciously and consciously fed with a lot of dystopian scarcity, tragedy. That's sort of what is our constant. And then there's a glimmer that is beauty, or a glimmer that is happiness. Do you think that there's sort of, probably now we're more open to it, but do you think that is one of the Achilles heels that we have?
I think so, yeah. And the good news is it's all that glimmer, that hope, that possibility, that light is all around us. It's here, including, you've brought in a couple of times the whole notion of the lifting of the veil. So one of the things we do on this conscious streaming platform, it's called Humanity Stream Plus, by the way. Humanity Stream Plus, you could Google it to see it. Is we bring in the near-death experience people. We're in the middle of a program right now with Dr. Eben Alexander. He's this neuro surgeon who had an NDE that was extraordinary. His partner, Karen Newell, and then Suzanne Giesman, who's one of the most esteemed mediums on the planet. So then we also work closely with the mediums like Suzanne Giesman, James Von Prague, Karen Noe, and other mediums. So now when you work around these people, NDE, near-death experience, and mediums, what you see is this whole notion, death is a fabrication. It doesn't, we need to get rid of the word death. There is no such thing as death. And that might sound, come on, there's got to be a 1% chance. I will tell you, there's no chance. So let me tell you my latest little story on this. One of the women who's really a key leader in Humanity's team, her husband, who was 58, 3 weeks ago, had a brain aneurysm and was gone. And they have a 21-year-old and an 18-year-old. And imagine, she's young. So imagine that happening, just gone like that. And he was on a trip away, so they didn't even see him that weekend. Now, one of our, Karen Noe, who's an esteemed medium, had a spot open up on Friday. She put them together with Ben, who left very unexpectedly. And they're just walking around in a new world. I have this happen all the time around me. My aunt, who's an atheist, had her partner pass, and same thing. It was like, and these very personal, very private things are discussed. There's just no way, So there is no death. So there is, and when we lift the veil and we really, and it's a simple process, which I do myself. I don't train people like these mediums, but I talk to my dad, my sister who passed, my grandmother, angels and guides. It's a part of my meditation process. It's a fairly simple process. Once we do that, then we become guided and informed, and I'll even go all the way to call it autonomous living. So, and we hear about autonomous driving with the electric cars, right? But no, autonomous living, where there's in that connection place where there's so much guidance coming in and support and vision and resources and all of these things. It's almost like you're sitting in the back seat, because life is now driving you to, I'm set up here to come on this program or other programs, and with my book and things. I've got these brilliant people in Humanity's team who I work with and who I love deeply, where it's just, I just need to get up and be the arms and legs and lungs of this that I am every day with my partners. So yes, there's light, there's love, there's possibility everywhere. I do believe we're going to pull this off. I know, Jim Garrison's teaching this week. And as we know, he's like alarmed. To call it alarming for him would be an understatement. he's like off the charts. This is really, really bad. We got to get moving now. And he's right. But I think if we can get media attention, public attention, get the discussions going around what conscious living is, that there's a remedy here right now, that many of us are living into it right now. And where we're living consciously, we can't do any of these things that are harmful to the earth. We're going to see even more lift and more lift and more lift as we move in this direction of a sustainable and flourishing planet.
It's so true. It's so simple, yet of course everything is complicated when you're doing change, but it's like going from this autopilot humanity state to really transitioning into the conscious, so we become just more aware. I know we've talked about a lot of the times on the sessions, of beauty, the essence of being in awe, that beauty can save the world. It's not an aesthetic beauty, it's actually the beauty of this intrinsic planet and the ecosystem. And that is sort of what also propels to the consciousness of wanting to take care of something that we actually consciously perceive and with our senses also emotionally connect to. But I was also, because we're going to soon transition to conscious business, but I just wanted to ask, what would you say, what advice would you give to leaders today, if we look at the leaders who are sort of still in the power play? What advice would you give of how to start to implement, or at least, put a strategy in place towards a conscious business, or what needs to be taken away to transition into becoming a conscious business?
So, well, one is I have great compassion for these leaders that we're talking about, and even the billionaires that we read about in the press. I have compassion for them because I know their lives are really hard, and I've got such a, I there's no judgment on any of it, but I feel like, oh boy, they really have not found it. They think they have, but I know what that kind of roller coaster day looks like, and I wouldn't want it for anything. Doesn't matter, the billions, who cares? When we look at how life really works. So that's one. Now, what I would say is it starts with ourselves. So, I use 3 E's as it starts with ourself. One, educate. So, and again, that's what Humanity Stream plus our conscious streaming platform, educate. So if anything I'm covering, the science, the near-death experience, the mediumship, the deeper spirituality, following our soul's calling, if any of that isn't registering in a big way, we have all these free programs on our Humanities Team site. Again, we're a nonprofit. If you go to humanitiesteam.org with a Y, at the top there's programs, and pull down the free programs. You'll see tons of them. Go through some of the free programs, educate so that you're aware. Then 2, where we educate and don't live into it, it's like looking at fruit and not eating it. Why would we? All the deliciousness is embodying it, expressing it. What we've just learned, right? So then step into it, embody it, express it, stand in it with both feet. And then 3 is engage others. Invite others to this, just as we are, you and I, during this program. So now I'll just add a little more for the business context. In the business context, you do need to, then where you're creating your conscious culture, you need to recruit people that not only are in the awareness and understanding, but are in the embodying and expressing. And these are 2 different things. A lot of times, they're in that first stage, not yet in the second stage. And there can be some real sharp elbows if they're not yet in the second stage. Whereas we're softer, kinder, gentler, we listen better. It's more loving, I'll call it, where we're embodying and expressing. So we need to recruit all the way into that. And then the third thing is then implementing all of these best practices in a conscious business. I covered some of them when I said we and not me, and the dream in front of us, and an inspiring environment. And there's actually a rather long list of best practices. Dr. Larry Clay and I will get into these things as we're actually relaunching our whole conscious business change agent program now.
So how does conscious business look at profit? How does conscious business look at sort of that aspect?
Profit is wonderful. I know a lot of people do have this thing about profit or treasure or something, a lack sort of thing. Where it's dangerous is where it's the end zone. So where we're just looking, we need to make more profit. This is why we're here, to grow our profit. Then it's dangerous. It's dangerous, but it's the lubricant for right now. We're getting reach and impact all over the world with our humanities team programs and our streaming program and their conscious business change agent program. And profit provides the cash flow to just get more reach, more impact, talk to more people, change more businesses. So where it's not the destination, but it's just part of the journey of just increasing cash flow, it's a wonderful, wonderful tool. So, and I think at least for me, it's easy when we're conscious, because when we're conscious, we know it's not about the money and Ferraris, and we know it's not. In our heart, we can feel that that's not bringing us the pleasure. We'd much rather be around a loving person, and there's no transactional stuff going on. That's what we really marvel at and find joy in when we're conscious.
So with the conscious business mindset, how do you see companies forming going forward? Because I presume the model and the structure of companies, at least large companies, need to also adapt and change. I mean, now we're in Web3, for example, it's decentralized, but how do you see company formations changing in order to adapt to this kind of business model?
So here's the thing, is the opportunities are extraordinary. Endless and extraordinary. So again, in the 90s, they didn't call it conscious business, but the way a little guy like myself who was learning, and was able to create that kind of growth and cash flow and wealth it was this. I could I'll tell you one little story there, because I think people do worry about it. I did when I threw away my time management system in the middle of all of this, because I realized I was giving people all these tasks, and people were like, oh, here comes Steve, with his 20 tasks to get done. And they were right. I was doing that. So, and I said, oh my God, I might crash my business. I don't know whether I can lead without a time management system, but I have to try. So I threw it out. Haven't had one since 1995. And I'm not saying people need to do that. This was just me. We're all a little different on the conscious journey, but I threw it out. And then when I threw it out and went to the heart-to-heart based communication with people one-on-one and in groups, just let my heart speak. Oh my God, of course your business is going to just fly, right? So there's segments everywhere right now where if you start a truly conscious business where you do that, you're talking from the heart, you're not scripted, you're not logic center of the mind, more wisdom center of the soul, where we're creating this deep appreciation, dream, inspiring environment, all of these things. Customers love it, employees love it, vendors love it, everybody loves it. So I think there's just extraordinary opportunities everywhere for people that want to go down this conscious business path.
Very interesting. And I thought, why don't we invite Dr. Larry Clay, who I know is the Dean at Humanities Team, the Dean of Conscious Business Enterprise, if I understood that correctly. So Larry, hi Larry, how are you?
Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Ben. Hi, Steve. How you doing?
And Dr. Larry is indeed, he's the Dean of the Conscious Business Change Agent Program. Yeah, an amazing program. So thank you for being here.
Definitely.
And letting me join you.
And Larry, share a bit with us, because we've been talking a lot about that this transition, especially if we look at out of a business perspective and leadership perspective, how we can utilize the knowledge of the conscious business and really have companies, industries implement that and really become these conscious business change agents. What is your experience? How are you evolving in that?
Yes. The first thing I wanted to acknowledge is that this program that we've created and re-engineered several times over the past few years is basically to set the foundation of the awareness, which is the basis of consciousness, is awareness. We want to amplify the awareness of what conscious business means, what it is, also include what it's not, but also give people an opportunity to listen to something that sounds very familiar to them, but may be a little different from what they've learned in the past about business and what it means. As Steve mentioned earlier today, It's really about the mindset and how do we change people, their internal self first, so that they're better leaders, so they can influence others to be better. That's the model that we're looking at. And we're actually taking the 4 principles of conscious business or conscious capitalism, based off of Raj Sisodia's book. In our modules, in the learning system, people are going to understand what transformational leadership is and how to practice it practically. They're also going to learn about what it means to have a organizational culture around consciousness, meaning not just the stakeholders only get profit maximization only, and that's the only reason and purpose why we're in business. Although that is a foundation of it, the profit maximization and getting the oil or the money that's needed to make the company run. But we want to invite people to think that it's more than just profit maximization in business and organizations. It's about that next level of being efficient. Then that next tier that goes out to being more caring and empathetic to your employees, as well as your stakeholders in your community that you serve and customers. But also to take it to that expanded level, just as consciousness is amplification, it's nonlinear. You get to that next phase to where we talk about flourishing enterprises, where you have people that work for the company, the leadership. People have their own interpretation, their own level of spirituality that they can bring to the workplace that helps them and improve them in their socialization and day to day. And these type of principles and things that we can incorporate and suggest how companies can operate and move are what we're providing for anyone who's going to join these classes or join the master's program and get a master's degree around this. So we're looking for a big amplification.
So just out of interest, so when implementing this, for example, in let's say large corporations, how do they go to the Humanity Team's website and then they have to, or do you actually become like consultants, or is there a software that they implement to, or how does it work sort of on that more maybe larger level where it, creating on a larger scale?
Sure, I love this question. Where it's a learning module system first that has 66, I think we have 66 in total learning modules that covers everything from the leadership aspect to how do you incorporate mindfulness practices in your organization or teams. And we even have something about how do you create brainstorming exercises, and you learn how to facilitate something that's very unique and interesting to me, which is the appreciative inquiry model, which you can harness the collective mind in creating strategic planning into even doing some entrepreneurship processes. But we not only have these modules for people to learn and to somewhat pace themselves in a 9-month setting, but we also injected a bi-weekly or twice a month business coaching session and guest lecture speech, where we're going to bring myself as a practitioner, as well as about 10 other practitioners or business leaders to come and join the cohort in live sessions over Zoom, to where they get the learned experience of and real case scenarios of people working in this industry and trying to be change agents themselves, whether internally in an organization that they work for, or they're a consultant on their own, working independently for other organizations, spreading the word of conscious business and change agency.
Yeah, I guess in all when we're doing transitions, there's always a need of these, role models. Because what comes to mind now, sort of when you talk about it, is I remember when Arianna Huffington started to talk about the sleep evolution, and with Huffington Post, and they started to have meditation rooms, and all of a sudden that became sort of the way. And it's not that many years ago, but it was sort of, you had someone who was in that business segment who started to front that kind of leadership, and it sort of got a ripple effect. So I guess it's both doing it, like you have the education possibility, and then you have the role models, and then I presume it's also, I mean, we have the businesses, but then it's the customers, because supply and demand, customers also have have a power to actually change the way businesses alter or transition to become more conscious. And then we have the stakeholders and their demands of, profit and growth. So it really is like, if not 180, but a 360 degree of educating sort of all the stakeholders in this. Do you find that is sort of part of the conscious business development, and that you sort of have to take all the different stakeholders, or is it more sort of like the business leaders and then, or individuals, and then driving it forward?
Yes, one of the key or even foundational principles of conscious business is wholesome oneness, collectiveness. And so what we teach in some, for example, in some of our strategy, when we talk about strategy and developing business, we talk about how business is more about an introspective type of process, where it's all about your eternal self, your internal values, the things that are what I call artificial, things that are made by man, can somewhat distract us into thinking we're doing well, or we have a great life of well-being because we have tremendous wealth. And as Steve mentioned, you're able to buy that Lamborghini and drive off into a restaurant and show off every now and then. But it's really that internal, or what we call intrinsic values or intrinsic rewards, where we find over time becomes more valuable to us when we become more conscious, because we're conscious that it's deeply embedded in us to be more, using Steve's term, more in love with the natural environment, with the natural universe, than we are with some of the things that temporarily make us happy, such as houses, food, property, and things like that. So we want to have this nice mix. I'm not saying, not have dreams of having your dream car or your dream house, but having that balance, that conscious balance, that not only am I able to have these extrinsic things and extrinsic rewards, but what's really valuable to me, now that I'm more conscious of self and gone through a process of introspection, are some of these internal values that I never thought will be powerful to me, that make me feel a certain type of way, of feeling whole, of feeling good, or a sense of well-being.
I think that is...
And real quick, which is, so again, from the NDE, near-death experience and mediumship community, the thing that they all share, and I'm guessing all of your viewers have heard about this more than once, is at the end of our life, we go through a life review, right? And the life review is not like a recording, it's a live thing, which seems impossible because your physical body is dropped, but it's a live thing where you're actually there. So I'd be Sabina and Larry here looking at me, talking, thinking about me and feeling into me is the life review. Throughout my life, I've got not what I'm thinking or doing, but the people that are there near me at important times in my life, what they were thinking and feeling as they were with me. So, and that's the entire life review from early to late. And then what is said is at the end of that experience, after you've felt that from all of these people that were around you, then the question is asked, now in your next physical life, is there anything you want to do a little different? So, and as we might guess, where our life was transactional, kind of sharp elbows, probably our answer is yes, right? So now where all of the NDEs and all of the mediums are bringing this back, to me, it informs us about ultimate reality and about this journey that we're on. So why would we not want to in this life, give some account to that. Maybe be a little better listener, be a little more truthful, a little more loving, one, it's going to feel good. And two, when we, at the end of our life, and as we're going back on this journey, that's going to feel good again. So I just bring that in because that to me, this is a statement about ultimate reality and that pure love environment that we're entering into when we go back to the non-physical realm. If it is like that, we can live any kind of artificial life we want in this lifetime. We have free will, we're invited to, but to understand ultimate reality and how it works in this whole cycle of life can inform us in a pretty big way.
And that's also, really putting it in such a good context. And I think a lot of people might have seen, I think it was spread on social media a while back, where nurses ask people who are on their deathbed, what is most important to you when you think about your life? And no one sort of mentioned, well, it was the billions or the Ferrari, or it was just, or what do you regret? And that was sort of like that I didn't love enough, that I didn't say what I felt, that I didn't give that
right.
extra, because that is our ultimate need. But we're sold, some, and the combination, of course, like you said, Larry, but I think that because we're on, especially if you become more and more successful, like you also explained, Steve, when you're sort of in that notion, it is a lot about running to do the next thing, running to the next. You don't really want to stop because, the larger the company, the larger responsibility, the larger the masses of resources, and the consciousness being injected into that is, like you say, when we get a moment to really reflect and have a moment of presence in all of this running.
So one quick thing on that, because you segued into something so important, I think, is because a lot of times people will say, well, this is kind of an elite conversation, treasure in Silicon Valley, and, but so let's bring it down to just somebody barely getting by, okay, blue collar and white collar, just making the rent payment. So why does any of this matter? They're just barely getting by. And here, what you're bringing in, Sabina, where you're talking about just running from the next thing to the next, you're running to the job, you're getting up, running to the job, you're watching your watch throughout the job, you're then running home, you're making the meal, then you're watching something, and it's just a running from, this to that, to this to that, with this whole roller coaster up and down, logic center of the mind, bad day, good day. That's what's experienced. Now, where you're conscious and these things that we're talking about become operative in our life, we're not running anymore. I mean, I now enjoy my sleep time. It's like, oh, I love the blankets and the sheets feel so good. It didn't feel like that before. It was a gap thing of it's 11. I can't wait to get up at 6 because I got things I need to do tomorrow, and then I was running throughout my day, and good day, bad day. Now it's not like that at all. I'm enjoying the moment, day and night that I'm in, and I'm not running to. I'm here with you all now and loving the moment. So it's completely different, even for people that are just barely paying the bills, so because a lot of people say that you got to get to that top of that pyramid, right, before we can really do the things we're talking about. I would contend, no, that, even at the bottom of the pyramid where we're just doing that racing to thing, life is, we miss the real invitation of life, in my opinion.
Mm. And of course, it's not just portraying sort of the wealthy businesses and so forth. It's easier to exemplify how to maybe implement a conscious business strategy, because we also have to start somewhere to then also be able to decentralize the resources to the mass, so that it is more decentralized and not centralized. So we sort of have to start, whether it's businesses or regulation or legislation and so forth. There's a whole sort of state of governance, which is a whole new conversation. But I wanted to also check, because we have such an active viewers in our chat here. So I wanted to see, have I missed a lot of questions? This is one a bit while back. We've sort of touched upon it. Franca, who says, while CEOs are working with their shareholders' money, they have a duty to increase this money and have this as their main focus, and only do what is right to the planet and the people as a second priority. I mean, this we've touched upon, but maybe looking out of a conscious business strategy, how do we rewire that thought? We've talked about it, but maybe include both you, Steve, and Larry in that.
Yeah. So if you're a public company and you're based in certain states actually have different laws around this, but it is true, you've got to really watch this. This is why, of course, B Corp came along with what it brings in, where now we're changing the statutes of the business and who we're responsible to. Likewise, conscious business, we're very clear about who this business is serving. So it's part of this discussion. Sabina, as you said, we've got to sit at a table and talk around the table with business leaders where we share, we outgrown, when we were in the green room, I brought in Galileo moment, and which is what we like to talk about today, because Galileo in the early 1600s, had his telescope and he said, hey, ultimate reality that's being talked about is not right. The whole universe is not revolving around the earth. So it's not that we're in a solar system and we're revolving around the sun and we're on the edge of the solar system. And it was a dangerous time actually to raise his hand and say science and research share is different, than what we think ultimate reality is. And he did pay the price for that. He was life under house arrest his whole life for that. And now, unfortunately, or fortunately, it's not one person. There's no single Galileo. It's all of us. It's why viewers are here right now, probably for this conversation, because all of us need to stand up and say, hey, science and research is saying it's not just the physical body, that we were taught in grade school and through college. It's all true what we were taught, we go to bones and dust and 6 feet under the physical body. But now science and research are sharing we're actually spiritual beings. It's an energetic, vibrational universe. We're emanations of that one. It's a completely different notion. And just as I mentioned in my own personal story, the ground actually shifts under us when we start self-identifying with this new science and research. So I think that's an important thing here right now, is that we're all really understanding, coming into the awareness of how life really works, embodying it, expressing it, and now in boardrooms, with business leaders, saying this whole notion of just top line and bottom line growth with what's going on in the world. It's this is a shell we need to leave behind, to go to the metaphor of animals that grow this way, leaving smaller shells as they grow into larger shells. We need to leave that shell behind.
Definitely. And there is a transition. Sometimes when we're in the change, we don't always see all the changes happening, because and especially now in this day and age that we're living in, there's so much change going on. I mean, whether it's from what we're talking about, business, or even physical with light bodies and light activations. I mean, there's so much going on for humanity at the moment, to really, where we're being assisted in this transformation. But because this is new for all of us in our own consciousness, we're not really able to know how to navigate it. But raising our own consciousness is one way of navigating it. I also wanted to sort of look at technology, because we're now living, in exponential times with emerging technology and AI and all of these things that can both be a facilitator, but of course also can be, I don't know if destructive is the right word, but depending on, how we utilize it. How do you see in sort of the conscious business movement, the implementation or the usage or the expansion of technology?
Larry, do you want to take this one first, or?
Sure, I'll take a stab at this one. I'm actually doing some preliminary research in this space as it relates to the new advancement of AI and what that means to society and how we'll be using artificial intelligence in the future, in the very near future. One thing now I know with ChatGPT coming into the market last quarter or fourth quarter last year, it raised a lot of eyebrows, even in academia and at my university. We had a lot of tension and discussion around using AI in the classroom. Is this plagiarism? Is this a new world that we're in? So I believe that, one, we still have a human advantage for now over AI from two simple things that we have here: spirituality and empathy. Those, I would say, those would be our two greatest powers that we have, or advantages us as humans have, once AI advances even more, to the point where everyone is fearful of that they will somewhat replace us. We still have this advantage, and I believe, and the study and the research that I'm doing, I believe that we should find ways to complement the use of AI for human benefit. And that takes a conscious and a highly ethical AI computer programmer to develop and be that type of person. But it's a necessary need. But while we're still working on trying to improve this AI engine, and I'm going to propose that we should use the human AI, which is appreciative inquiry, that generates ideas to make humans better, along with using AI as a complementary tool to help us get over the hump.
Steve, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. I like that. Yeah, appreciative inquiry, and Larry came out of the Fowler Center, where this appreciative inquiry was developed. Appreciative inquiry is something that I think comes natural to us in this whole what we're calling oneness, this deeply unified state, where the sharp elbows start disappearing. Which appreciative inquiry, just as the name suggests, where so can you help me to understand? Can you take me through that? Can I understand that better? Can you give me examples? Appreciative inquiry is where we're now harnessing the wisdom of each other through these natural processes of reaching out in thoughtful, appreciative ways. So beautiful. And the machine type AI, I think will develop processes here in these years ahead. In Europe, as we know, they're already out. I think they're really ahead of the US, even in what we're doing here to look at artificial intelligence from a technology and how we're going to create regulation around it. In the US, that discussion has started as well. I do think that what we're talking about here, conscious living and conscious business, that we're going to outrun, I'll call it, the AI thing, and this whole emerging consciousness where we're in this universal consciousness that animates and permeates all of life, that awakening is occurring, and it will outrun AI. And then if that's true, we will naturally manage well AI, because when we're a part of that universal consciousness that's animating and pervading all of life, we're in this really good place that we're all trying to put words around now. It's basically love, and this affirming life, and that supports life at first as our priority.
Interesting. No, it's definitely, no one has, we have sort of a sacred map, and then it's just trying to find the way. But when you look at technology, there's also the metaverse, there's also, virtual reality that we call the empathy machine, where technology also can be useful in education, to set people in certain environments to start to understand, for example, consciousness and so forth. So that is one aspect of technology that is interesting, fused into education. That gives it sort of a scalable possibility as well. I wanted to just
if I could just add one more thing on the technology. There are some advancements that I'm aware of where we're using some of the meditative practices, some of the things like heart math. There are apps that are out there now that help track stress and how your body reacts to stress, and how you can incorporate something called a quantum breath or a serenity breath. It's where you take a minute to relieve yourself right there on your phone. And incorporating these type of practices and the use of technology to amplify your conscious, there are about 3 or 4 tools that I've seen that are out there that helps. Calm has been used as well.
Let me share. Humanities team created a masterclass. We create lots of these. As I mentioned, there are hundreds of them on that our streaming platform. But one of them that we created recently was with Greg Braden and Nassim Harriman, and it's called Forbidden Science. And it gets into this whole thing of the science that we've been talking about here that goes beyond the physical body into this whole energetic, vibrational, spiritual universe that's not taught in classrooms. And then we also created a master class called Technology, Consciousness, and Evolution. And that's with Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton, and Lynn McTaggart. You'll see those on the Humanities Team site. And this one then specifically gets into this whole AI thing and says that we're just beginning to understand, when I was using this Rumi quote earlier, the whole ocean in a drop, we're just beginning to understand what that means and how we can harness wisdom and power and so on. That goes way beyond what the artificial intelligence, which is machine learning. So it's learning based on current learning based on current learning. It's not taking advantage of future wisdom and power and understandings that we have of how we really work as spiritual beings. So that's a really cool program too. Technology, Consciousness, and Evolution that is getting into where can AI be beneficial, and putting fence posts around it. And then what is emerging in terms of this human consciousness, this human wisdom that is really, that we're only really beginning to understand its fullness of.
Very well. And I think that's that, and coupled with also what you said, Larry, which I think is a way forward as well, is this coupling of education, but also bring awareness to individuals through wellness and longevity with technology. Because when we start to become more aware of our bodies and how the reactions and how sort of really connect with ourselves, I think that's also going to bring a level of consciousness that can also be both on an individual level, but also as a leader. So I think there's so many, interesting facets of how we can, raise that consciousness. I just had one more, because I saw that there was, just before we end, there was, just to be more on a practical level, Ruth Ann here in the chat who said, she's talking about her own business. I'm baffled while trying to create a wellness-focused benefits package in a disadvantaged community startup. Do you have any great model or template? I just thought I would raise that question because it's quite a hands-on question of how maybe they can utilize your tools, or if they go in on Conscious Business website, or what you recommend.
Well, they should come. So we're doing a free program Tuesday next week. Right, Larry? We're I think it's at 5 p.m. Pacific, Tuesday next week, and we're going to do a presentation. It's a free program. If you go to humanitiesteam.org and just sign up, we're doing one Tuesday, and then there's another one that follows, I think, on Saturday. And this, Larry was sharing the number of modules and the number of teachers and leaders and so on that are in this Conscious Business Change Agent program. It's just rich in this kind of discussion of, I'm starting a wellness program. I want to be a consultant to conventional businesses. I'm an entrepreneur and I want to start a conscious business. I mean, it's just tools everywhere that are here. First in the free program, and then you might even be interested in the Conscious Business Change Agent program. And that matures into what Larry was bringing in earlier, our collaboration with Ubiquity University, an accredited master's degree in conscious business. So where we're working together in the program that follows Conscious Business Change Agent. So between the free program and all the follow-on programs, wow, do we get into that one?
Amazing. Well, that's it. So next week, and they can go in. Could you mention the website again and all the initial websites? Because I know that we've mentioned it through the program, but just to sort of reignite that memory. So
if you go to humanitiesteam.org, that's with a Y, humanitiesteam.org, at the very top, in the lead item there is this business at the forefront of change, and this free program that's airing next week twice. So the timing on this program is great, so that we can talk about that. I think Larry and I are both there. I'm not positive to answer questions after we review the presentation, but it'll be awesome. We'll cover a lot, and we'll talk about our vision and plans for other programs that will come behind it.
So with all this, I mean, there's so much that we've covered in this session, and it's amazing what you're doing. And it's, showcasing what is possible. It's showcasing that the remedy is there. It's showcasing also that we as individuals, business leaders, state, nation leaders, and so forth, we need to educate ourselves on, the new world that is here. That is sort of a key if we're going to transition and to become more conscious as well. Is there anything else, just as sort of a closing word? I'd like to hand over the word to each of you to sort of really maybe consolidate what it is you find is vital. And please, if you have any, point of action that you would like people, leaders, or politicians to take, please do express that. So Larry, if we start with you, and then we can end with Steve.
Sure. Closing notes. We really would think that this program, the master's program and the conscious business change certification, if you're not that interested in a degree, you still get most of the same content in the program. The idea is to disseminate the information so that whether you're a politician or a business owner, or you're a CEO, or even if you're just an activist in the community, you can find some value in it. Just as the last person that had a question mentioned, how can you incorporate this in a challenged organization of resources? We'll give you the content so you'll be able to disseminate it to your team, group, organization. We'll also provide you with a couple of ways how you can facilitate and run it and manage it yourself if you're trying to manage your own organization or team. So that may be hopefully another selling point to try out, and maybe even come and visit us next week to see, just to get a little clue and a little tidbit of some of the value that you can find in our modules and program. But I don't want to sound like a radio that this is for everyone, but this is something that for those that are just curious about how can I make my business better by working on myself first, then working on the externalities, the organization, my people, my stakeholders, my employees, and thus forth.
Thank you, Larry. Very well put. And Steve?
So yeah, mine is just a call to action to everybody here. We're here in Humanity Rising, which of course is deeply affiliated with Ubiquity University. And then you have these others. There's Hollow Movement, and there's Whole World View, Jude Currivan's over there in Europe. And there's Unity Earth, and there's Purpose Earth, and there's Urban Laszlo's Upshift. So there are all of these things springing up everywhere. It's clearly, this is our moment, right? In history books, when you have all of these percolating all over the world at once, it's evolution's time has come, right? There's a shift clearly happening. We're in the middle of that shift now. And I just, the whole reason we're here is not for us to be talking amongst ourselves. It's actually to be with you and to talk about the importance of the urgency really of stretching into this way of conscious living, of creating new businesses that inhabit the earth, of creating households and communities that are really quite different, where we would never think about soiling our planet, where we deepen this self-identification that I believe all of us have that are here around, we're an emanation of the one, and where we're going to affect positive change and during the rest of our lifetime to help usher in that new destiny of a sustainable and flourishing planet for the young people and future generations to come. So let's educate ourselves, clear our limiting beliefs, really stretch into it, live fully into it. And the beautiful thing is this is the most delicious way to live our life anyway. So even if there weren't all the challenges, I would be saying this. And with all the challenges, I say it times 10. So let's do this together. We are doing it together. And now let's take it to its destiny.
Thank you so much, Steve. And just once again, to all of the viewers, I mean, when you have someone like yourself, Steve, who is, you know, we're talking about the shift and the transition. And I think when you have experience from one reality, let's put it that way, sort of being in the shift of shifting from stakeholder value, profit, and so forth, transitioning into conscious business. When you've done that journey and you're a part of educating around that, there's also an authenticity in that, because it comes with experience, at least to navigate the way forward, along with all your team, Larry and everyone else. So, you know, urging people, you know, we all have a responsibility in this, whether we're individuals, whether we're leaders, whether we're change makers, catalysts, employees, we all have, this is the moment where we have to step up and be agents of change, because that is the only possible way forward. If we all want change and sustainability and a better world, it's time, you know, there's no governance that can lead us to that. It is a unified action where we are, every single one of us are seeds in the same pot. And we really need to, you know, feel that, embrace that consciousness of we can all be, you know, catalysts of change and change leaders collectively. And that's quite a, you know, and a cool era to be in, despite all the challenges. We can all be heroes of this.
Yeah, Sabine, thank you for convening this discussion and hosting it, leading us, and, you know, real privilege for Dr. Larry and I to be here with you. And we actually have so much respect, really, for Humanity Rising and what you've been doing for so many, a number of days that you've been broadcasting. It's extraordinary. And then, of course, you have all of your own wonderful programs with Ubiquity University. So, you know, big bow to you all.
Well, thank you so much. And I want to incentivize an action, Steve and Larry. Let's talk. I've been a lot to World Economic Forum. I think there needs to be a World Economic Forum focused on conscious business. That could be the next step to sort of.
Oh, I would be totally down with that one.
Let's look into that. Once again, thank you so much, Steve. Thank you so much, Larry. And thank you so much to Humanity's team and all the work that you're doing and the education that you're bringing forth with all these amazing collaborators and leaders and spiritual leaders who are all connected to this. And thank you also for being, you know, a collaborator to Humanity Rising, and for your wealth of wisdom, and the best of luck going forward. I'm sure we'll have new conversations on this. And please, all of you who are viewing, check out Humanity's team. And if you have any questions, you can also join the after chat, which I hope Larry and Steve, if you have time to do. Stan has sent out a link in the chat for this. But if not, as I'm sure that people can reach out to you, Steve, or also Larry, of course, Steve Farrell or Larry Clay via LinkedIn, if you need to know anything more. Before we end, just a brief on tomorrow's session, because of course we're back tomorrow again between 5 and 6:30 CET PM. And tomorrow we're going to talk about BioBala Institute. We're going to present and talk more about the environmental aspect. We're coming back to trees. Trees, as we know, are fundamental. They've been around longer than us, so the key of knowledge that they have is you know, abundant, but they're also in trouble. And the BioBala Institute wants to tell the story of how trees and humanity can be saved. So please join us then. And until then, be in all of life, and remember, you are a change agent. Thank you so much, and have a beautiful day.
Amen. Thank you. Let's see.